Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap, your nightly news podcast on all the news that I come across throughout the day, giving you my take as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Hopefully, all you guys are doing wonderful. Hopefully, all you guys are doing well. Today is October 28th, and it is Tuesday. It's been a pretty interesting day in the news world, that's for sure. But if you're new here, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated as we are trying to hit 500 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year. And if you're on Substack, please also consider subscribing as well. All funds go to me. They help me pay for the things that I need to pay for in college, like food, like clothing, like all of that. But if not, you can always subscribe for free. I truly do appreciate all forms of support on this content. With that being said, let's get into the news from today. Moving on into the Trump administration segment, as we do, the first topic we have today is military officials are being forced to sign a non disclosure agreement for operations in the Caribbean. U.S. troops and military leaders are being required to sign a non disclosure agreement, or NDA, to take part in the U.S. campaign against Venezuela in the Caribbean. An interesting step, as troops already aren't allowed to discuss security secrets. But, this report comes from previous Southern Command head Alvin Hosley, who had stepped down after previous concerns about Pete Hegseth. This comes, this comes as Hegseth is also trying to suppress the flow of information coming out of the Pentagon, which makes this really interesting. In all honesty, I think Venezuela is going to end up being my generation's Vietnam. And truly, if this is the case, I'm sure we are not only going to do some horrible things, but go out and commit horrible things. Genuinely, it's going to be interesting. It really is. But hey, anything for oil and the great American empire, keep in mind that this administration cares more about, getting oil and, putting another country as leader in a body bag than making sure their own people can feed themselves. But hey, is that shocking at this point? No, absolutely not. In other news, a federal judge has blocked all of Trump's layoffs indefinitely. A federal judge has indefinitely blocked all of Trump's efforts to lay off federal workers during the government shutdown. U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston sided with the unions of these employees, who asked to bar, the administration from carrying out reductions as more than 4,000 workers were set to be impacted by these layoffs. This injunction extends Ilston's previous order, which stopped the administration's attempts at layoffs because she believed it would be illegal and an overstep of executive authority. This is great news, especially right now with how terrible the job economy is, and the fact that there are less jobs available than there are unemployed people in this country. We shouldn't be laying off these federal workers in the first place, but hey, I'm glad to hear that we are protecting the people who make our government function better and who make it easier for Americans to get the assistance that they need from the government. I'm glad we're seeing something stop this administration from doing just anything they please during the government shutdown. So great for this judge. Good to see it. Anyways, moving on into our ICE segment, we have one topic today as an ICE agent pointed a gun at protesters and said, "Bang, bang, you're dead liberal." An ICE agent has pointed a gun, not a pellet gun, but an actual firearm, at protesters and journalists in Chicago and shouted, "Bang, bang, you're dead liberal." The incident took place in Chicago's Little Village neighborhood, where residents gathered to watch the ICE agents. One of the few who had a gun pointed at them was a combat veteran named Chris Gentry, who was lawfully standing on the side of the road voicing his opposition as agents were driving by in their vehicles, when then an agent decided to pull a gun on them and essentially threatened to kill these individuals. For ICE agents to do this in the first place, to American citizens is not only insane, but highly unprofessional on so many levels. Not only did they do it to journalists as well, but they did it to a combat veteran, which is insane. But when it comes to journalists, they are protected by so many treaties and laws, that make doing something like this extremely illegal. Extremely illegal. Once again, ICE agents are displaying themselves why their agency should be shut down. Genuinely, there is no way an ICE agent should be able to go out and do a job and then simultaneously threaten to kill the people who are protesting against that job. Like, that is insane. That is not something ICE agents should be doing. Fuck ICE and fuck Donald Trump for starting all of this bullshit and making ICE so much worse. Anyways, moving on into our other news segments, the first topic we have is really interesting as Albania's AI minister is pregnant. Albania's AI generated minister Delia is pregnant, according to the Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama. The AI reportedly have 83 children to be used by each member of the country's parliament as assistants. Rama said in the announcement, "We took quite a risk today with Delia here, and we did very well. So for the first time, Delia is pregnant with 83 children. Each one will serve as an assistant for them who will participate in parliamentary sessions and will keep a record of everything that happens and will suggest members of parliament. These children will have all of the knowledge of their mother." Albania is definitely an interesting place, that's for sure. This is not something I planned on hearing today, nor is it something I really ever planned on reporting on again after they announced the AI minister. But either this will go horribly wrong or it'll be an interesting tool used by their government. I personally would rather have political leaders think for themselves than have an AI tell them what to say on a floor and have an AI, tell them what to oppose on a floor. But maybe that's just me not liking AI in the first place. But I feel like political leaders should definitely be thinking for themselves rather than using an AI. Especially when they're representing people. An AI isn't representing those people, it's a political leader who does that. So come on. Uh, but it's very interesting to say the least that an AI is pregnant with 83 children, mind you. Like that's kind of insane. Anyways, corporations are now starting mass layoffs. Corporations are now starting mass layoffs at a time where millions of Americans are actively struggling to make ends meet, as Amazon and Paramount are eliminating thousands of roles. Amazon will be removing as many as 30,000 corporate roles, which is around 10% of the company's corporate workforce, while Paramount plans to lay off 1,000 employees. This comes as companies are looking to use AI and robots to fill positions rather than people. The fact that the companies who are currently related to the Trump administration are, or in one way or another, are laying off so many people is very interesting. Because last time I checked, Trump isn't doing anything to help those people by creating new jobs. We still have more unemployed people than we do jobs in the United States, which is a problem. Like, that is a massive problem, which means all of these people will be going without jobs and they will not be able to find any, just as millions will be without food because of this administration. We, the American people, need to come together here, and we need to realize that this administration and our government as a whole would rather us starve than provide things that are necessary to us. We are the only first world country in the world without free healthcare, and we are one of two countries that is actively against food being a human right, which is a problem and something that we need to change ASAP. In other news, Mike Johnson said he is tired from working too much, yet he's only worked 20 days in the past 4 months. House Speaker Mike Johnson is reportedly tired from working too much, despite him only working 20 days in the past 4 months, and continuously sending the House home on breaks. Johnson said in a press conference, "I am so tired because we're not sleeping a lot. We're working overtime. But thanks to Johnson, the House hasn't been in session since September 19th, which was way before the government shutdown started on October 1st. And, I believe pretty soon it'll be what? I don't know. What am I saying? Like whatever. I don't know where I was going with that one. Um, which is way before the government shut down on October 1st. I had to find myself. On top of that, he also still refuses to swear in Representative Adelita Grijalva. So what is he doing? I don't know why I stopped in the middle of that. Like, I just genuinely had a brain fart. Interesting. Weird. Okay. I'll tell you what he's doing. Absolutely nothing. If you showed up to work 20 days in the last 4 months, you'd be fired. Like there's no like mistaking that. Like you would be fired if you only showed up 5 days in a month. Genuinely. Which is something that needs to be considered with Johnson. Because we've removed speakers in the past for doing absolutely terrible jobs, and we can do it here too. Rather than a Trump puppet, let's get someone in who actually gives a shit about the American people and isn't just willing to conform to whatever the president says, because that's not what the speaker should be doing. the speaker is separate from the president, and unfortunately, that is not the case with Johnson and Trump, which has become a massive problem. In other news, Republicans are also upset with Mike Johnson, as this is our final topic for tonight. But Republican lawmakers are upset with Mike Johnson's shutdown, according to Axios. Republicans had a private call this afternoon, leading many questioning if they should still be at home or if they should be working. Representative Dan Crenshaw, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Kevin Kiley all raised concerns about being on recess during the government shutdown, and all of these representatives are questioning their party's refusal to even negotiate with the Democrats. According to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Johnson didn't even provide a plan for healthcare, which is what the Democratic leaders want to end a shutdown. In a post on Twitter, she wrote, Johnson said he's got ideas and pages of policy ideas and committees of jurisdiction are working on it, but he refused to give one policy proposal to our GOP conference in our own conference call. I'm not a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene at all. I do not think she's a great person, but how she's approached this administration and how she's willing to speak out against it is something that I will, without a doubt, respect her for sure. We've seen Republicans so far conform to Trump and, let him do as he pleases, but for the most part, that's not been her. She's actively been willing to speak out against the Trump administration and say that she is not afraid of Donald Trump, which I think is great. And, in all honesty, if Johnson is taken out as Speaker, and I really hope he does, and if a Republican has to be the next one, like it can't be a Democrat, if it has to be a Republican, she would be at the top of my list, just because of the fact that she is not scared of Trump, and she is actively willing to speak out against Trump. Again, I'm not a supporter of her. I do not think she's a great person, but if somebody is going to oppose the Trump administration, and if somebody is willing to speak out against the administration rather than being biased towards them or conforming towards them, I think that should be recognized. And I think that, in a way, she should deserve her flowers for that. With that being said, though, thank you everyone for watching today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed. It has definitely been a very interesting day in the news world, that is for sure. But if you're new here, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated. As mentioned, we are trying to hit 500 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year. And if you're on Substack, please also consider subscribing as well. All the links go to me. They may pay for the things that I need to pay for in college, like food, like clothing, like all of those things. But if not, you can always subscribe for free. I truly do appreciate all forms of support on this content. We're out here building a political platform. It's my goal to be a politician in the near future. So if you're interested in a country that actually cares about its people, like providing things like free healthcare, providing things like food benefits, providing things that actually benefit the day-to-day lives of the American people, drop the subscribe, because that's what we're here to do. With that being said, though, thank you all for watching today's episode, and I will see you all